I would probably start the conversation with uninspiring, unwatchable, unserious, not fun, and altogether craptastic.
The uninspiring one is the one that really stood out to me there. Off season, I think you tried making the case this would be the most competitive 3-win team. But for this game, they were not the competitive 3-win part of that. They were very uncompetitive. They were very unserious, as you said. And I think that's the part that bothered me the most. Not only did they seem like they were never going to score, they just seemed like they were lifeless out there. They were dead. They were zombies just walking around on the field. It was awful.
There are one or two ways that you can take that I think our media brethren has taken the Browns 1-5 start. One is I told you so, which we'll get to in a second. The other is revisionist history, which is, I would say, lower than hack if you just can't say, I was wrong about anything, right? Like, you and I feel like we do a good job being like, ooh, missed on that one.
Well, it's hard. I mean, there's so many things we just miss on. Yeah. Like, it's just very easy to be like, hand up our bad.
Occupational hazard, right?
That's what the right way to describe it. Occupational hazard, you're going to miss. It happens.
I even think, though, there's an element of I was wrong in some of the people saying that, we knew the Browns were going to be this bad. It's like, no. You knew they had a great chance of being 1-5. That's the part of this that isn't surprising. The surprising part is how undisciplined they are. Mm-hmm. The surprising part is how their age of their core players is shown. The surprising part is how Kevin Stefanski, who heralded, we're going to go back to the wide zone. We're going to go back to my old offense. How just completely inept. We thought it would be a bad offense. We didn't know it was going to be a historically bad offense. They're undisciplined. I've heard, this is not a thought that I espouse, I've heard several friends say they're unlikable. I don't know that I agree with that, but I mean, Jerry Jeudy's OPI was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, especially from somebody who Kevin Stefanski said after the game is one of their leaders. You can't be undisciplined. You can't lack toughness on offense, although that's not a rubber stamp for everybody, and you just cannot be as bad as they are. Yes, we thought they might be 1-5. We didn't know they would be an uncompetitive 1-5, which is mostly what they've been outside of 3 minutes against Green Bay.
Well, and it's the penalties and it's the drops that I'm just at my wit's end with. I mean, maybe this is part of the roster construction problem when you bring Jerry Jeudy, who always is close to the league lead in drops, and then David Njoku, who 2 years ago, remember he had to put a jugs machine in his living room because he was trying to work on not dropping the football as often, and then the drops came up yesterday. I
didn't know it was one of those jugs machines. I thought it was a different jugs machine. That's on me. Yeah. That's on me, dog.
Well, I was always like, he's not worried about the really expensive paintings and vases and everything he has in that living room? He just puts a jugs machine right in the living room? What's going on? You know Harold Fannon's college game better than I ever will, but did he drop a lot of passes at BGSU? Was that a thing with him?
No.
He's dropping them now.
He had, I don't even remember that Connor Bazelak throwing him the ball. He was pretty sure-handed at BG.
But he's dropping them now, though. That's the difference. And it's funny. I was sitting there. I had Elisa's aunt over for dinner yesterday, and we're having pizza, and she was just like, so you have the new quarterback in, and she's like, does he just... I was explaining how left-handed quarterbacks aren't a thing in the NFL. Yeah. And then she's like, so does he just not throw a catchable ball? Is that what that is? And I'm like, you know what? It sounds stupid when you say it, but that is a thing. It is a thing with left-handed quarterbacks in particular, but it is a thing just in general in the NFL. And it sounds so simplistic and so easy. Like, does Dylan Gabriel just not throw a catchable ball, but then Joe Flacco wouldn't as well? I'm going to put it more on the drops with these guys.
I just feel like, specific to the Browns, I guess we just run the league in terms of uncatchable balls. Like, I feel like every quarterback that ever comes here, we're like, this guy can't throw a catchable ball. Or maybe we just can't find receivers, their head from their ass.
Well, then, Chad O'Shea's been the only constant throughout any of this mess, and the wide receivers coach, he's been here the entire time. Does he just not have them use the jugs machine except when it's their living room? I'm so confused by this. The
Browns are going to buy you one of these, but you can't have it in Berea. You have to have it in either your finished basement or in your actual living room.
They're so averse to the jugs machine, actually, and joking to buy his own. He got one on Marketplace, and then he puts it into his living room.
That's a problem. You got it on Temu.
The discounted one.
You got your jugs machine on Temu. You got your quarterback on Temu. I mean, this is a warning sign.
It's just like, what's happening here?
I mean, the Browns are worse than we could have imagined at 1-5. They are. There is a competitive 1-5. I've said I want the most competitive 4-13 team in the NFL. You're not even getting that. And what I think is interesting is trying to navigate these two fixed points, whether this was the worst loss of the season or just the most recent one, because I think the fact that it was to Pittsburgh and the fact that, again, you got punked. Like, not defensively, but offensively, you got punked. They slapped you around. Your wide receivers were afraid to go over the middle. Your quarterback wouldn't stop lining guys up to get teed off of over the middle. Your head coach is coaching, and I think it's fair to say he's coaching conservatively. Some might can maybe say it that he's coaching a little scared right now on offense. Like, all of it comes together. I tend to think this was just the latest loss. I don't know that this was truly the worst loss, but I understand why Browns fans feel like this was the worst loss. I
think the Ravens one might end up being the worst one because that defense just looks so bad now, and the Ravens look so bad right now. And that was they dog walked you.
Yeah.
Only win the Ravens have this season, and they absolutely destroyed the Browns in that game. And it was at the time we just kind of looked at it like, well, it's Lamar and it's the Ravens. They're going to be awesome, but they're not. That defense, how do we not score 20 points on that defense, Nick?
I also will say, I know the Lions have dog walked everyone. The Lions made your defense look like the 15th best defense, not top 5 defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think maybe that's the point, is in half the games, you've been blown out. And I know that the schedule's tough. Yeah, everybody's got a tough schedule. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to get blown out. I honestly think, John Harbaugh has shot atop, now that Brian Callahan's been fired.
Yeah.
John has kind of shot atop the leaderboard, and I don't think it's the fact they're 1-5. I think, or 1-4, excuse me. I think it's the fact that in their losses, they've gotten way too many blowouts, even if Lamar Jackson wasn't their quarterback the last week or so.
Well, I mean, in that case with the Ravens, it really makes it seem like it's everything that happens is because of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which tracks with most of the teams in the NFL, by the way. You lose your franchise quarterback, you're not going to play good football.
Well, at least in Cincinnati, yesterday with Joe Flacco in there, obviously they're not playing good football. You're right about that. But so many beat reporters around Cincy were immediately like, this offense looks like it can do something now. They didn't get embarrassed yesterday. I think that's what you're looking for in those situations. Whereas with the Ravens, they've been embarrassed every stretch of the way now.
Would you put this closer to the worst loss of the season or just the most recent?
Yeah, no,
one?
I think it's the Ravens game. I think that's the worst loss of the season. But this one is really, this is the one. So last week, it was bubbling under the surface, and I thought it was a real turn on Stefanski last week, and they did nothing to dispel that. In fact, in a game where Dylan Gabriel completed 55% of his passes and should have had about 7 interceptions in that game, he didn't. Obviously, they weren't caught. Not catchable football. See where they can't even catch him.
I actually like that.
See how that one works?
Yeah, it can't be intercepted if you can't catch the damn ball.
That's right. In a game where he looked, we'll talk about it later exactly how he looked. He was like the 12th biggest problem in that game. I mean, he's so low on my depth chart of problems that the Browns displayed yesterday. Whereas at least in other games we could look and be like, well, that wasn't great because Joe didn't do his job and we don't have the quarterback to get after it. This was a full team outside of Andre Schmidt, a full team disaster.
I think what it comes down to me and why I empathize everything that everyone has said about this game and why it stunk so much and the unwatchability. It's bad enough to be awful. Can you just be watchable? And you couldn't. The most watchable thing that happened was Isaiah Bond getting doinked on the helmet because he wasn't looking at the quarterback. Not mad about that.
I actually think that ball was going to Jamari Thrash. That was my takeaway. I've Zapruder filmed that one.
Is that why Bond was screaming at Thrash?
Yeah, that's why he was. I'm convinced. Thrash was screaming at Bond.
Oh, okay.
Thrash was screaming at Bond.
I only saw the return fire. I didn't see.
So I went back and watched that because I thought that first off, the play was just. It's comical in many ways, and also but I was like, I want to find out what happened in this play, and either it was the worst designed play in NFL history, where you would have Bond at the exact time that Thrash was wide open in the end zone, or Bond just didn't do the right thing and cut him off, and then doink in the head right as Thrash. If you go look at it, Thrash was open.
Right.
He's sitting there open in the end zone, waiting to catch the ball 10 yards beyond.
We're not looking at this the right way. Isaiah was so excited for his teammate to catch the touchdown, and he was watching Jamari Thrash run that route, and he was thinking to himself, that's the prettiest route I've seen run today.
I mean, he
was just admiring his teammate and what a graceful athlete Jamari Thrash was.
Yeah,
he wasn't not paying attention.
A real gazelle, that Jamari Thrash. I got lost in his speed.
But no, this comes down to two things for me. This comes down to, on the hand of, it can't possibly be the worst loss of the season. You made 2 huge trades earlier this week, and we can laugh at them. We can laugh at Flacco being the backup. Those trades matter in a locker room, especially one that has lost consecutive games and knows that their winning days might be numbered, right? And then the second thing was London. So that juxtaposed with Tomlin never blows anyone out. You took a team.
He doesn't. He tries to let you back in.
I'll be honest with you. I watched the Steelers. I came away. I went into that game thinking they're good. They just got to figure it out. To coming away thinking, they're pretty mid. And yet they still blew you out by a significant amount.
Legitimately, for like a quarter and a half, had the thought of, wow, Aaron Rodgers doesn't look anything close to what the Aaron Rodgers I used to think looks like.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this could be anybody. Just give him with the last name Rodgers on his jersey. It could be just about anybody. And then he picked it up a little bit, but there was nothing special about that.
How about the Metcalf Sherlock touchdown? I mean, you just got to get it there. And what was it? Was it 7 yards short?
It was a lot short.
And then with DK moving back towards the ball,
Rodgers looked up to the heavens as if it was like the wind's fault.
Yep.
That was a great reaction. Yep. So many people like fake injuries in that moment. He looked up like, oh, gust of wind got that
act
one.
Of God. Act of God. Now, of course, Aaron thinks he's God, so it may have been an act of Aaron Rodgers as well. 52 passes attempted by Dylan Gabriel, who, all right, I know that this is not a silver lining. But credit where credit is due. There were some guys making business decisions on the Browns yesterday when the hits started piling up. David Njoku was not one of them. He got blasted a couple times. Respect to David Njoku. And another one was Dylan Gabriel, who got the ever-loving crap kicked out of him and impressed me. Today and today only, I am not calling him Timu Tua. That was that.
Well, we'll see what happens in a couple hours.
No, the rest of the week I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah,
but today,
I think you did in the first segment, didn't you?
I said Timu. I said you got your quarterback off Timu, but I didn't do Timu Tua.
What other quarterback would that implied?
I don't know. Could have been any of them. We're bound to have 17 this year, but no Timu Tua today because that was really. If a guy can take that kind of booty kicking, my hat's off. Well done, sir.
I liked it. He looked like he legit threw a punch at one point.
Loved it.
That was kind of fun. I saw somebody earlier today. They were posting high school video of Dylan Gabriel, and it was him just throwing receivers and what is considered hospital balls.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a problem with him.
Yeah.
It's a big problem with him.
Man, could they play any more Dylan Gabriel versus Nick Herbig in Hawaiian high school football?
They did a lot. They played a lot into the Hawaiian side of this thing. Yes, they did.
And by the way, didn't hate it. It was interesting.
Didn't find out if his parents. I assume his parents. If his dad didn't have a passport for London, this should be the game that he then makes it because he can fly anywhere inside America. You think that this would have been the game he was there? I didn't see any crowd shots of his parents though.
You take the Steelers game and you go, you know what? We'll go to the next one.
The lack of support from his parents and his fiance in this, and I didn't check her TikTok. Maybe she was actually there yesterday.
It's true.
It's a little alarming if you're Dylan Gabriel.
Actually, I think it'd be
They're
more
just not interested.
If she was not there yesterday, that's more alarming.
All right, I'll check it in between the break. We'll
I'm assuming she's not living in Hawaii. I'm assuming she's living here, and it's like you can't take one afternoon
apparently
off.
Sephora gives her just no days off. That's just part of the deal of a new job at Sephora.
Depends if you work in a Kohl's.
It's a 2-hour drive.
One way that this has been described by Browns fans, yesterday's loss. And again, the big overarching question is, was this the worst loss of the season or just the most recent? I understand the anger. I understand the vitriol. I think this was just the most recent, even though, man, it's really hard to get defended. It's really hard to defend getting blown out by Mike Tomlin because it just doesn't happen. Like, it was a 5.5-point line, and I want to say you had more cracks in the red zone than they did. Not great, Bob, just being honest, but this has been described as a Kevin Stefanski loss. And not that fair matters because we're all adults here. I just don't know that's entirely fair.
So the way I look at it is this was the game. Last week was the game that everyone turned on Stefanski. This game didn't help Stefanski, obviously, but I think this is the game. I was too early. Last week I told you all the narratives were going to be he doesn't have the players. He doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the personnel in order to win. And that would be the riding excuse that the Stefanski supporters would be able to make for Kevin Stefanski. And it felt like after this game, that's when that narrative started to really take flight. That's where it really became eyes wide open that this is more than just a coaching problem that the Browns have. This is a talent problem, and it's an everything problem.
I feel like I can parry away, not a Stefanski supporter. As a matter of fact, if you remember, I was furious that they let somebody like my biggest problem with Kevin is I don't think he's a leader of men. I think he's a good schemer. I think he's a great human being. Vanilla offense, I can parry away and be like, yeah, he's starting a third-round rookie behind a bad offensive line, and look at who his receivers are, right? Like the fact that they did look undisciplined, this, that, and the other. Well, they've looked undisciplined, this, that, and the other for 5.5 years, and nobody's cared until this point. As a matter of fact, the media, the greater media who's defended Kevin, has kind of, anytime you mention the penalties, it's like, well, you can't work on everything. But like today, the one thing so again, I've made my case that I'm not the biggest Kevin Stefanski defender. I don't put too much of that on him yesterday. I put a lot of what you saw yesterday on Andrew Berry, who, and I started making this point last week because I was hearing people go in on Kevin Stefanski, and I'm like, what about the clown who made, that was too heavy-handed. I'll take that back right. No, because I'll be honest with you. Andrew's the progenitor of Deshaun Watson. Andrew made the biggest mistake in the world that every GM does, which is, I didn't draft this guy in Baker Mayfield, so I don't feel beholden to him, and now I have a reason to move off him. And at the first moment he did for a guy that was had incredibly problematic accusations and lawsuits off the field, who then stunk it up on the field. And then beyond that, because he made that huge trade, they didn't have enough assets to go pour into the offensive line or the wide receiver room. And yes, he drafted
the draft picks. Yeah.
He drafted 4 nice football players this year. What about all the other things? What about Jed Wills? What about Greg Newsome? What about countless wide receivers that can't catch or get open? What about countless offensive linemen who can't block?
That's the problem. So here's where I want to look at this, though, because I want your viewpoint on this, because you've told everyone before the season that it was going to be a 3-win, 4-win season, right?
Hey, 3-win Wilson here, baby.
3-win Wilson's there. He's live. He's cooking. He's everything in between. But then, like, if the job of Stefanski was to basically make this a quick 1-year rebuild and basically pull off what you were describing the entire time, I can make an argument in the eyes of the person that matters in this discussion. In Haslam, he is doing his job in many respects. Like, if they're approaching this year as the poison pill year, then he didn't have to think about the offensive line. He didn't have to think about the wide receivers. He didn't have to think about any of these things. He just had to find a way to get 3 or 4 wins while building the team for next year and beyond.
Are you talking about Stefanski or Barry?
Talking about Barry.
Okay. I think the only thing is, again, that sounds like something I do think that Jimmy might think of, or that the Haslams and in general might think of.
See how easy it is to give him, in the eyes of the person that matters the most, not a Peterlin pass, but the idea of, you're doing this the way that we told you to.
If we focus just on this year and the plan for this year, yes, except for the fact they're not competitive. And I do think they're not competitive in part because you basically said, hey, Kevin, go back to the things that you had success with early in the year or early in your time here, and then didn't give him the pieces to have success with that.
I mean, this screams like the team that you were telling us we were going to have all off season. And again, you said competitive 3-win team, but like more the idea that this screams like a team that is not in line to win anything. And for the people that were trying to push it to 8 or 9 games before the season got underway, they ignored all the rankings of where this wide receiver room was, where this offensive line was, where everything was with this roster. Andrew Berry could have done something to address that. I believe he didn't intentionally.
Well, and here's the thing. That's about, because I think people have pointed out you drafted 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs and no offensive linemen this last year. Totally fair. Luke Whippler, they drafted, has not done a thing yet. Nick Harris was another draft pick. Zach Zinter, Jed Wills. Of the offensive linemen they have drafted, they have not developed any of them, nor has any of them just stepped into a role.
Say the same thing with wide receivers.
So to me, I think that's where maybe I'm going after Barry today. It's like, it's not even necessarily like if Whippler or Zinter was ready, well, okay, you could make that move. If you had drafted a developmental tackle and developed them over the last 3 or 4 years when you had, I don't know, the best offensive line coach or second best in America in Bill Callahan, maybe we would have somebody that can step in when Jack Conklin has another ouchie boo-boo.
Yeah, well, so I think that would be, so the discussion we've had there with wide receivers is he took 1 million different third-round wide receivers year in, year out, I think does apply here, at least for offensive linemen taken after Callahan has been gone, and that is it a drafting problem or is it a development problem?